Martial World Teyvat Chapter 40, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. With a new day came new trials. And by that, I meant that it was time I got my ass in gear and went and made my next factory with all the materials I had stored up in the dozen spatial rings hanging around my neck. Dear God. I may not have some kind of inventory skill, or a cheat-based pocket dimension, but when I could have a dozen spatial storage devices hanging off my body, who needed such a thing? But after I woke up after sleeping in rather late for some odd reason, I got the girls together and said, "All right ladies, I plan to build the elixir and pill factory over here." I pointed at a large expanded map of Liyue. Where I was pointing was the northwestern part of the Gili Plains adjacent to the Yaoguang Shoals, as there was a large ocean inlet there that I wanted to use to fuel the factory's electrical needs, along with using the water once purified used to water the herbs I would be growing. Though as I pointed at it, Ganyu gave a slight hum and said, "Not far from that area is the territory of the Yin-Yang Harmony sect, and they have a very colored reputation." I raised an eyebrow and asked quickly as I frowned slightly, "Are they an evil sect or something?" To which Ganyu gave a wry smile and said bluntly, "Honestly, yes, but they are too valuable for Master Cloud Retainer or the other sect lords to put them in their place, as they send the most cultivators and martial artists to the chasm and depths." I brushed a hand down my face as I considered where else I could put it, and after a moment I realized it was still the best place, with the location I picked being a large cliffside I could build into for safety for the factory itself. So I asked plainly, "How evil are they? Do they eat infants or something?" Like at this point, after hearing people being torn apart and their flesh being ripped and devoured out in the streets of Liyue when they got caught out for being out too late by the hellbats, I had a bit of tolerance for icky shit. If they were just kleptomaniac robbers or used slaves to mine their spirit stones, I wouldn't give a shit at this point, as I had so many bigger things to worry about, like the 2 entrances to literal hell in this country, which was shitting out demons, monsters, and countless other abominations. It was Keqing who explained as she held my arm and spoke with a warning in her voice. The Yin-Yang Harmony sect is a sect that focuses on dual cultivation to quickly bring up cultivators and martial artists, as it is the fastest way to grow in both schools of power. But they get their names as an evil sect by defending their disciples who take husbands and wives forcefully, and their callous way of throwing said disciples into the meat grinder that is the depths and chasm to weed out weakness in their sect. Shinha then added on with some respect in her voice, "Actually, normally strictly dual cultivators are weak. The weakest cultivators by far normally. But their act of throwing them into the chasm and depths makes sure that only practitioners of strong will, talent, and luck remain after being within their sect after a year." I exhaled and then asked the pressing question, "Are they going to be an issue?" I asked bluntly. To which Keqing looked at me straight in the eye and said, "Yes. You have the young, heaven's gifting physique. The sect's old monsters will happily crawl out of their crypts to force themselves upon you. To say nothing of their roaming disciples taking a fancy to you and trying to seduce you." There was a moment of silence as I mentally downloaded that information, and then looking at the map I drew the factory location a good 50 miles down to the south, closer to Liyue City, and said calmly, "Alrighty then. This is the new location. I have the materials we need, so let's get going then, unless we need to do anything else." Yelan was already back in the cultivation tank mooching off the spirit stones, while the Yiksha were busy guarding this factory, so it was just the 4 of us in Ganyu, Keqing, and Shinha. And after my question, Shinha shook her head and said simply, "No. I am ready to go now. Are you ready, senior sister?" She asked Ganyu, who just gave a wry smile as she said gently, "Some 50 miles won't change things, Jake, but it will give you more legitimacy, I suppose. So let's get going." Keqing herself only gave my wrist a soft squeeze in agreement, and from there we loaded back up onto my Pelican and we were off, flying a good 400-something miles away from Liyue City to reach the edge of the Gili Plains in order to build my next factory.